Okay, so today Jerry was making fun of me, right, y'all? So y'all know I take notes, right? I got so many notes today. I don't even know where to start because I'm absolutely beside myself with all the stuff that's going on. So Texas, I'm a native Texan. I love Texas. This is my state. This is my home state, and we got issues. We've got issues, but it's home, right? It's kind of like family. You love them, and you just kind of try to avoid the ones that got too much crazy, right? You love them from afar. But what has been happening, and there's supposedly another bill that's about to be signed. Senate Bill 1 is about to be signed today, which is a voter suppression bill. Senate Bill number 1 is about to be signed today in the state of Texas. And then, of course, we have the abortion ban bill. So I'm not going to dig deep into that, and I'm sure I will probably lose some listeners today. Those who are silent in the face of injustice have taken the side of the oppressor. And God has given me this divine interaction and divine connection to meet Jerry, to be able to have this show and to have a platform. And I am not fulfilling my purpose for not using this platform. And I will do as I've always done. I will speak the truth. I will go with facts. And it's just, that's just what we're going to do today. So in the face of all of these things, I want to talk about this whole idea of hypocrisy. And I'm going to tie it to leadership because we do talk about leadership and personal accountability here. But here's a few things I want you to think about. With this voter, I'll start with the voter one first because my blood pressure is a little bit lower on that one. Here's the thing. We are now in a state that has said any person, competent or not, crazy or not, can go get a gun in the state of Texas. Don't have to have a license. You can carry it anywhere. Don't have to have the training, none of that stuff, right? With the argument being, well, criminals don't follow the rules, so why should law-abiding citizens have to follow rules? Okay, so that logic just doesn't follow to me because criminals are going to be criminals no matter what. So you're just going to make everybody a criminal. It just makes no sense. So we got this whole idea of people now being able to carry guns wherever, whenever. By the way, companies, you can still post that firearms are not allowed on your property, private property, stores, businesses, all of that kind of stuff. You can still prevent the carrying and the holding, the brandishing of firearms at your place of business. That is still legally available to you. So utilize that. So we have all these people who can do that. Now in Texas, what's been interesting is, we didn't really have a lot of drive-by kind of stuff in Texas, a lot of road rage shooting. We never had that for a long time because everybody in Texas got a gun, right? So we didn't really have that. At least that's what I attribute it to because you never know who's packing in Texas. But we've even started to see a tick up in that here in Texas, which is just unusual. Now that's a lot of people moving to Texas too. So a lot of non-native Texans that just don't know the rules of decorum in Texas. But you've got all these people now who have that. And we've got a bill that's going through that is limiting the hours around early voting. It is limiting and criminalizing sending out ballots to people if they're not requested. It is eliminating where you can turn in your ballot. So ballot places, right? So if you have an early voting ballot, there's only certain places. Like in Harris County, there's like one or two, maybe. The last one I saw was one in a city of the size of Harris County versus like Little Leander that's got one for like 2 people. Okay. They're limiting that. And there's going to be all of these people who can be at your polling place who are not trained, who are not knowledgeable about the actual laws of voting. And they say it's to watch the polls. They're poll watchers. But you're worried about people being intimidated in line and their vote being changed while they're in line. I mean, the hypocrisy is incredible. So now you got all these people, all the zealots, all the people on the fringes who can now go to a polling place, which theoretically are not supposed to have firearms, go to a polling place with a gun and potentially get involved in an altercation with somebody because they have a different belief. or because they look a certain way, or because they want to challenge whether or not they are eligible to vote. Which I saw this morning, they're actually going to require you show your driver's license number or the last four of your social security number. So again, untrained people who now have access to the last four of your social security number or all the details of your driver's license. It's insane. It's insane, right? The hypocrisy of all of these competing things that people did not think through under the guise of, we have this whole area of population that's irritated because they didn't get what they want. And so now we're claiming that they didn't get what they want because somebody cheated. And here's the thing. If you look at where the cheating has been, if you really have an issue that you believe is the right thing, a position that's the right thing, if a position that is valid, a position that is something people can rally behind, then do that. If you believe in it that strongly, then you should be able to convince people to your side. You shouldn't have to cheat to get it. Just saying. You shouldn't have to cheat to get it. So that's the first part where we talk about all of this idea of how we're creating this vigilante area. It's like going back to the Wild Wild West. And in that era, all these people using guns, right? All the suppression of voting and voter intimidation, because that's what's going to happen, is voter intimidation. The connecting point to this whole abortion ban law is this idea of history, and those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. So we have all these people up in arms about critical race theory. We can't teach critical race theory because it's making all our children feel bad about being white. Well, number one, if your kids are that sensitive, that's a different issue. And how about how we, people of color, have had to put up with the same kind of thing in microaggression for generations. And one course is going to make you guys so sensitive that you don't want to have it. And you haven't even looked at what's actually in critical race theory. You have no idea what's actually in it. Somebody called it critical race theory. Somebody got in front of the narrative early and said that it's about making people feel guilty for their race. That is not what critical race theory is about. Go do your reading. Go get the facts. So we're all worried about critical race theory. But here's the reality. We can't even get basic history right. All my history teachers out there, oh my gosh, our inability to think, our inability to recall, our inability to understand and connect what's going on. Basic history that everybody is learning. Remember McCarthy, 1950 to 1954? Remember all the trials around communism? Remember all of the people that were asked and goaded into and rewarded for turning people in who are communists? Remember all that madness? That's what we're talking about with this bill. Anybody can sue anybody who they believe was in any way related to some woman who decided to make a choice with her body. The Uber driver, the person she called on the phone and said, hey, I'm getting ready to do this, the doctor, the clinic, whatever. And these are people who have no idea about the person's life. They have no idea of the person's health history. They have no idea about nothing. But they can sue out of whatever they believe to be their right to do something. But these are the same people who say, you're infringing upon my rights to make me wear a mask. Hypocrisy, by definition, is the state of Texas right now. So wearing a mask is a violation. But suing a woman over her choice is not. So regardless if it's that or if it's anything else where we're trying to impinge, why are some impingements okay but others are not? Why is it, right? You don't have any issue with vaccines that kids have to go to school except for this one where people are dying. They're dying. I go back to, again, those who don't know history, I go back to something that happened because the anniversary of 9/11 is coming up. A tragic day for many of us. And I remember where I was. I was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania when 9/11 happened. I was at a client. I was working for Deloitte and I was at a client. And we had just gone into a meeting and somebody came into the meeting and said, a plane just ran into the Twin Towers. And I thought, no. And then they turned on the television in the room and we saw it happen. Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I was stuck in Lancaster for about a week. And so that's coming up. And I remember after, it was probably a few years after our response to that and our entering into the conflicts and the wars that we have since had. I remember that. And there was an article I read from a historian that said, you know, what's different about this? And it started, I believe she said it started with probably Korea and Vietnam. And then, of course, went into, you know, Desert Storm and all the things we've had lately, is the difference between the recent history conflicts and the conflicts that happened for the greatest generation, you know, World War I and World War II, is that every citizen was required to participate. Every citizen was required to participate. We rationed food. We saved foil. We saved oil, right? We saved aluminum. We saved, I mean, rubber. There were, everybody in the nation participated in the effort in World War I and World War II. Everyone had some skin in the game. Everyone felt the pain, whether or not you actually donned a uniform. And don't get me wrong, I am by no means minimizing the level of pain and the level of suffering and the level of loss of those who actually served. Because Lord knows I am so grateful for them, because I get to do what I do because they do what they do. What I mean is, everyone had to sacrifice something in order to support the effort. So everyone felt something. Everyone was much more closely connected to the decision that we had made, the choice we had made to enter. But recently, we haven't done that. We get to sit back on the sidelines and not participate. We haven't had to ration a thing. We haven't had to dial back anything. The only time you see rationing is if something blows up and all of a sudden we have to ration gas and there's a run on gas, right? Or there's a run on toilet paper, or there's a run on bread. There's, you know, it's when something otherworldly, something disastrous, Mother Nature or something else happens, then all of a sudden we are having to ration only because of our behavior around hoarding, right? And price gouging, but not because we are actually invested in the situation that's going on. That's not the issue, right? We have not had to have skin in the game. And so now we've got this whole group of folks, a lot of those in my generation, right, Gen X, who have become silent, become tired, right, the moderate middle, who have gotten intellectually lazy. We don't go look up the facts. We just wait and see what the pundits are going to say. And I'm not saying don't listen to all of that, because sometimes, again, I've told you, sometimes the best way to support your argument is to listen to the other side, listening to understand. But the level of hypocrisy that we are exhibiting is just beyond anything that I have ever seen. It is selective. It is selective in what we choose to support or not support, more so than I can even remember. I listened to a woman who is an attorney for Right to Life in Texas. And she was being pushed pretty hard by a reporter that said, but wait a minute, there's a thing in this ban that says you can't even do this if the mother's health is at risk. Her response was, well, there are, even if the mother's health is at risk, there are so many other options that the doctor can do. So your law degree gives you a medical degree too. So you know what the best decision is for that woman, for her spouse, for her partner, for her life. And oh, by the way, at 6 weeks, it's a grain of sand. And while there may be a heartbeat, it's because the heartbeat starts first. Because the heart has to pump blood to build everything else. Y'all, listen, it's the science. It's the science. And it is taking back the rhetoric, which is choice means choice, because your choice may be to have that baby. Choice does not mean we automatically are telling every woman to go into pregnancy. That's not what choice means. Let's be real about what words we're using. Words matter. I have a dear friend of mine. She's been my friend for 30 years. Had a note from her last night. She said, you know, my daughter, 20 something, in the face of all that's happening, my daughter is actually talking about having her tubes tied right now because she just doesn't want to be bothered. She doesn't want to have to deal with it. 20s. Young children that are victims of incest, because that doesn't count either. Rape doesn't count as a reason. Young babies having babies can't make this choice with their physician. right? So we found a way to give voice to people who have absolutely no knowledge of someone's individual situation and giving them the ability to impact that person for the rest of their lives. And don't get it twisted. This is not about life. This is about birth. Because if it were about life, we'd be having people wearing masks. If it were about life, we would do something about healthcare. If it were about life, we'd do something about childcare. If it were about life, we would do something about ensuring that people had access to care. If it was about life, because life lasts until you die. We wouldn't have so many kids available for adoption if that's what it was about. We wouldn't have to be fighting about all this other stuff. It was really about supporting an entire lifetime of someone. Our system, our foster system, kids are out at 18. I had the pleasure of going to SOS villages in Jamaica. We delivered some books to them, and their process is different. Yes, when you turn 18, they will help you, but they help you transition. And they've got you covered until 2022. They help you find a job. They help you find a place to live. They even supplement the first 2 months of your living situation because they want you to transition into adulthood with as much possibility as possible. Not us. 18, you're out. No wonder we have so many issues. And here's the thing. We have somehow decided that moderation is a problem. And the reason it's a problem is because clarity is safer. If we can pick a black or white answer, an absolute yes and absolute no, that feels safer. Our nervous systems are good with that. Our brains are good with that because we don't have to think anymore. It's absolute yes, absolute no. We don't have to consider anything else. But the world is gray. The world is gray. There's a lot of stuff in the middle. And so all of the folks that you hear are on all of the fringes. The fringes are the folks that are the loudest, and the fringes are never going to agree. Never, ever, ever, ever. On all sides. I always say both because that's the ones we talk about. The radical right, radical left, those are the only ones we talk about. But there are so many more that are fringe. And they tend to be the absolute loudest. And so all of the noise generated from that drowns out the reasonable folks in the middle who still may have ideological differences, but have the maturity and the capability to have a reasonable conversation about those things. That's what's missing. Intellectual agility, a level of decorum, a level of appreciation for somebody else's perspective. That's what's missing. An ability to have detailed conversations about stuff. It's also a problem that we have people who've just been in positions way too dang long because you lose sight of the impact of the decisions you make on all the people you're supposed to be representing because you've been gone too long. You're not living that life anymore. You are out of the fray. And if you don't make a concerted effort to stay connected, you won't be. And we're feeling the impact of that, both the intended and the unintended consequences. Don't get it wrong. The Voter Suppression Act and the abortion ban, those were intended activities. There has been a grassroots effort that got really quiet around pushing these kind of bills, the voter suppression bills. There's an active organization that is working to get those in every state. And they are lawyered up, right? They got lots of experts, and the rest of us are being quiet. If you are silent in the face of injustice, you're taking the side of the oppressor. We can't be silent. And here's the thing. If you really want to protect the election, fine. We all want the election to be protected. We need to have confidence in our election process. That's what was so bad about what happened a couple of years ago. We need to have confidence in our democratic process. If we're going to do things that really instill that, okay, fine. But don't do that under the guise of we got to protect it on false narratives. Now, how does this relate to leadership? Remember, we've talked a lot about how you show up and that people will listen to what you say, but they will believe what you do. If you operate and behave with a level of hypocrisy, your trust erodes very rapidly, and your ability to move an organization forward is stymied at best. It could be eliminated completely. We just had a meeting this morning with a group of senior level HR executives, and we had an incredible presentation that was focused on executive comp, but there was a bigger message around that, which is, this whole idea of incentives right now, right? And how we're compensating people. And you've got all these layers. Again, critical thinking, guys. You've got all of these layers. We try to make it black and white. We've got this true war for talent again, because people are being very adamant about what they will and will not tolerate in their jobs, right? More flexibility. What is the pay going to be? All of these kind of things. And companies are really scrambling to try to make it happen and to try to balance profit margins, operating costs, all of that kind of stuff with this talent war. So the budgets for salaries is really going up tremendously, not only to attract people, but to keep people. And if you layer on top of that, just that piece, the whole idea of ESG, right? Economic, social, and governance, right? That ESG thing that everybody's working on. How do we look at pay equity? How do we make sure that we are responsible citizens? How do we make sure we're paying our fair share of taxes? Because that has economic impact on the communities in which we operate. If you layer that on top of the practicality and companies that have been focused very heavily on profit, right, and profit margins, because we are shareholder driven, not stakeholder driven, it's really putting a lot of pressure on leaders about how you show up and what you say and how transparent you're going to be. And that's what came up this morning when you talk about how are we changing executive comp? How are we differentiating? How are we maybe taking away some perks or modifying some perks, especially when there's a level of entitlement, especially for C-suite and senior level executives around their equity, right? Not only their base salary, but how much equity and when they get it and what kind of goals are set, right? What kind of measurements are around there? What are we doing around that? And the presenters were talking about how it is so critically important that you have those clear conversations, that your action supports your words, that you tell people, here is where we are economically, here's what our environment is looking like, and here's the decision we're going to make, and here's what we think the impact is going to be, and here's how we're going to evaluate it on a regular basis. And if we find something that we need to change, here's how we're going to be flexible. Just say it. Just say it. HR people, CHROs, I'm calling you out. You got to have courage to push your executives to have these conversations. And companies, you got to be ready to let people go. If there's somebody that you really want, are you willing to put a retention agreement in place or not? As they even said this morning, if you're that company that says, well, we want everybody to come back to work for 5 days a week, here's what it's going to be. You need to be ready to lose people. And quite frankly, I think that's okay. Because sometimes that whole idea, and I know I'm going to a lot of people irritated, that whole idea of having an average tenure of 27 years, you might need to have just a little bit of fresh blood in there. Some new ideas, some innovation. Not that there's anything bad. I've talked about experience. There's value in experience. But when your average tenure is that high, what are you doing to instill new ideas, new innovation, promote looking outside instead of just getting we've always done it that way? How are you stopping breathing your own exhaust in your organizations? HR, what are you doing to help leaders step up, to be honest about where they are, to make calls, to make hard calls? This is where we have to be courageous. We have to call it out, and we have to come with solutions. Because it's easy to just point out a problem. True partners, true business people, because HR people, we need to be business people first, HR people second. True business people look for solutions that get us to the outcomes that we want, that achieve the strategy, right? That meet the objectives. The plus is that we theoretically understand the impact of those decisions and those actions on the people in the organization and how we need to address that. And it's critical for us to understand that, and it's critical for us to call it out, and it's critical for us to come with solutions to those things. Because that's what we're there for. That's what we're there for. So if you're a leader, this whole idea of hypocrisy, right? Man, we're going to have to pay attention to our salaries. We're going to have to cut everybody's base pay. We're going to have to accept the C-suite. So how bad is it really? how bad is it really? Because see, yes, the C-suite may ultimately take the biggest risk in terms of jail time for some kind of compliance issue, but the C-suite isn't getting the job done every day. They're not. The people on the floor are getting the job done every day. And the people above them are helping them get the job done every day, right? It's only as you creep up that you get so far away from the actual process, what the actual levers are that make the business work. Just like I was talking about politics, the further you get up, the more likely it is for you to lose perspective on what it takes to do the job every day. And so might there be people on the fringes who are asking for the moon? You know, I never want to come into work again. And oh, by the way, if you want me to stay, you got to increase my salary by 15% and let me work at home. And I'm only working 4 days a week, even at home. There are going to be people who are going to push the envelope. Come on. I think we heard this morning that one of the areas that is hardest hit right now is accountants, right? Because accountants don't want to go into the office anymore. I get that as a recovering accountant. Why do you need to be in the office? At least from a job performance perspective, from the tactical pieces of your job. You don't have to be in the office to do that as long as you have the technology. Now, there's the other piece, right? The cultural building, the team building, those kind of things. There's Zoom fatigue. There's all of that kind of stuff, right? My fear, because we tend to swing the pendulum and because we don't have a real handle on moderation, is companies may get to the place where they're like, yeah, you know, we'll let people work at home. And we're already seeing this. We're going to let you work at home, but we're not going to keep paying the same amount of money, right? Our investment is going to be in setting up your home office. Our investment is going to be in all the technology. We're not going to continue to invest in a base because you're not commuting the way you're commuting. There's all these other things that have gone away. So we're not paying for that stuff anymore. Right. And in fact, we may be getting rid of some office space and we're not, we're still paying for some of these things. We're not going to be paying for them. Why would we do that? So be careful. There's two sides to every coin, right? And there's always going to be a negotiation. There's going to be some winning and some losing. There's going to be some compromise. But if you are a top performer right now, a really top performer, if you're honest with yourself and you're a top performer, there's no better time to do some negotiation. Just understand what your end game is. Because at some point, they're just going to say no. Are you ready? Do you know what that final no means? Are you ready to walk away? Are you ready to find something different? Right? Can you negotiate something different? I was talking to a friend of mine and I said, I would imagine that more and more people at the executive levels are being much more vigilant around what their employment agreements say with respect to severance, with respect to continuation of benefits, right? With respect to change of control agreements, those kind of things than they ever were before. And she said, absolutely. Even further down below the C-suite, right? That next level of executives that may not even have had that negotiating power are also looking at those things. Negotiating kind of the exit strategy, negotiating the just in case, the best alternative to a negotiated agreement, right? Negotiating just in case things go south, I'm going to be okay for a while, especially around benefits, right? Continuation of benefits. And so as leaders, you've got to really pay attention to, are you showing up transparently and is your language aligned with your behaviors? Because that hypocrisy has even greater ramifications now than it ever has. Because people are listening. They're really listening. You're saying you want to build this culture of camaraderie. You're saying you want to build this culture of innovation. You say you want to build this culture where we're taking care of people and we're concerned about their mental and physical well-being, as well as their financial health. But you know what? It's now, September 2021, and we need everybody back in the office 5 days a week. And that's okay. That's okay. You have the choice to do that. Just be really clear on why. And I'm not passing judgment. You just need to understand where the trends are going and then decide if you're going to buck those trends or not. Or how can you do something that makes a little more sense for your talent retention and talent attraction strategy and still ensures that you are a financially viable organization, right? You're not going to mandate vaccines, but maybe, just like Delta, your premiums go up if you choose not to get vaccinated because now the vaccine is FDA approved. Just like smoking. If you're a smoker, your premiums are higher. Being a smoker is not a protected class. Being anti-vaccine is not a protected class, right? So more and more companies are going to start looking at those things that talk about what are some other perks that in a non-discriminatory way, we can modify or be selective around where and to whom we give them based on the outcomes that we need, right? So it used to be salespeople got these big car allowances, right? Or they got a car. I would imagine a lot of companies now are relooking at their fleet vehicle programs, because where is everybody going right now, right? And after all of this is over, are they still going to be driving to clients? And oh, by the way, some people who've gotten to the place where, you know what, I can really do this and do it as effectively, if not more so, from my home or my home office. I don't need to be there in person. I'm just not going to do that. I'm just not going to do that. My choice is that I will absolutely be connected with clients, but I don't do anything in person anymore. And hear me clearly. You have that choice to make. That is absolutely your choice to make. What you are not free from is the consequences of that choice. Because your organization may say, okay, we get it, no problem. You are a fantastic performer. We've seen no drop. All we ask is that for some clients who are truly insistent, that you be flexible enough, if they have the appropriate protocols, that you will go to them, right? You negotiate some kind of what ifs or other kind of scenarios. Or you just prepare for them to say, we totally understand. And that's not the way we're going to operate going forward. So here's your 2 weeks notice. Right? We cannot just do all the time whatever it is we want to do and expect no consequences. We just can't. Especially when what we do impacts or connects to other people. And we have got to do a much better job of getting real information, of getting real facts before we make decisions and before we pass judgment. You know, for us to have gone on this whole rampage now and this whole fight around Roe v. Wade, they're fighting Roe v. Wade when the rate of terminated pregnancies has dropped significantly in the last decade. Significantly. Not by like just 0.5%. Like significantly. Go read the facts. Read the facts from the CDC. Read the facts from the National Institutes of Health. Read the facts from people who have unbiased data. It has dropped significantly. So we're fighting a demon that's not even there. But if you are thinking critically, if you are out of your emotions and looking at people's perspective and their agenda, what is underlying that decrease, right? The actual fact that the terminations has decreased overall is that birth rates have decreased in some populations, not the ones that people would like. And therefore, here we are. So let's just be real. Let's just be real and honest about the decision we make. And it's the same thing for you as a leader. Make the decision to the best of your ability. Get the information that you need, understand the culture, or if it's a private business, make the decision you want to make. Tell people why you're making it. And if why you're making it is because you want to, just say that. This is a decision I want to make because this is how I feel and this is how we're going to move forward. Okay. That is perfectly fine. It is within your purview. And just be prepared for the outcome related to that, for the consequences related to that, for people to leave, for you to keep the people who you probably wish would leave. Because a lot of times what happens in these situations is it's the top performers that you have failed to recognize, failed to reward, because you're afraid of not, you know, for people who fight against socialism, I'm trying to find a way to say this nicely. The place you can find the greatest example of socialism is in corporate America, because heaven forbid we distinguish about performance. Heaven forbid somebody get 5%, somebody else get 1%. Heaven forbid we have to have those conversations about how, you know what, meeting expectations is just that. And meeting expectations doesn't mean you're a high performer. It means, here is what I set out and you met that. That's average. That's average. You did what I paid you to do. Why am I rewarding you for doing what I paid you to do? Because your reward is your payment. But we have gotten so afraid of being honest with people about what they do and how they do it and what the expectations are. And we have leaders who cannot set clear expectations. So it's just become this quagmire of crap that it's easier to just say 2% across the board, 1% across the board. And by the way, nobody's getting excited about 1% or 2%, y'all. Nobody. That $2, that is not going to push the needle. It's just not. Right? And that's why your high performers are like, wait, I busted my butt. I was here every day during COVID. I far exceeded everything you asked me to do. If you needed it, I made it happen. And I get 2%, and so does everybody else who didn't even show up. Really? And here's the thing. Those performers may tell you one time, and then they're going to get silent. Because the really good ones aren't going to stop working, because that's not who they are. But they are now open to every single conversation that comes their way. And when they are ready to go, you may or may not get 2 weeks. Just be ready. Be ready and own the consequences of the decisions you make. Be ready to own the consequences of if you're acting as a hypocritical leader. If you're saying one thing and doing something different. If you are failing to acknowledge that folks may have a different perspective. I just realized I didn't have comments up, y'all. So thank you so much. I see everybody here. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Like I said, I was fired up this morning because it just flies all over me that we are repeating the same crap that happened decades ago. The same thing, 1950 to 54. Guys, really? Just 70 years ago? Really? Really? We're doing the same thing again. Emboldening people who have no stake, who have no information, who have nothing other than an agenda to hurt someone. Really? And layer that on top of the other systemic challenges that we have. We have just exacerbated this issue. This is not thinking people don't see this and just close a blind eye. Thinking people don't do that. Thinking people may have a difference of opinion. Thinking people may have different perspectives. But thinking people understand how to get in a room and understand the issues and focus on the issues and come up with a solution for the issue, not for the agenda. And what we're seeing is the consequences of following an agenda. And it's an agenda of fear of change. And that is valid because change is hard. Change is scary. We are beings that have a fight, flight, freeze, faint response. That is innate in our nervous system. It is not, I am not slamming people for being afraid because we all are afraid of something. But we need to understand what that fear is driving us to do. We need to understand that in some cases that fear is causing us to just not be engaged at all. If I just don't look at it, it's not true. If I just don't listen to it, it won't happen. And don't get me wrong, you have to be careful about what you put in your mind first thing in the morning. Because I've gotten to the place where I don't turn on the news first thing in the morning. I listen to something else. I do my meditation. I'll listen to Joyce Meyer or somebody first thing in the morning. Because not today, Satan, right? You got to have, whatever your thing is, you got to have some coverage because you do have to protect your mental state because it's crazy right now. Plus, we're all exhausted. Right? So you add all this madness on top of exhaustion, and it's just a quagmire of crap. But it's important that we understand that we are responsible human beings. We are responsible for our actions. We are responsible for what we think, because what we think is what we become, and what we become is what we do. Right? Your actions are a reflection of your thinking. Your actions are a reflection of your perspective, and your actions that show no change and no willingness to be flexible in the face of new information says a lot about you and your character. May not say a whole lot about your intellect. I'm not going to comment on your level of intellect, but it does say something about your character, and it does say something about your intestinal fortitude. because that reflection also includes the ability to say, you know what, I got that wrong. And that was one thing that I always told my teams and anybody that worked with me, you don't ever have to worry about calling me out on anything, because I'll probably come to you first and say, whoop, that was a problem. So here's what happened. Here's what this was, the decision I made. This is why I made it. Here's what the outcome was. Didn't anticipate that. We're going to fix it. And guess what? You won't make that again. We won't make that again. I'm not perfect, so we'll probably make something else, but that one won't happen again. We learn from doing. We learn from our mistakes. And hopefully we find different ways to interact and engage. And that's why things like having truly diverse populations, having kids get exposed to people who don't look or think or act like them early. We teach people how to hate. Kids don't come out of the womb hating. They don't come out of the room thinking about differences. We teach that. We teach that. So how do we come back to this idea of, if we're going to attack something, let's attack ideas. Let's not attack the individual. Let's attack ideas. Let's base things on facts, right? Let's tell the truth and the whole truth about our history, the whole truth about what happened with colonization, right, on the continent. I heard somebody say the other day, because words matter, and I love words. They said, you know what? I no longer use slaves or slavery. I use enslaved people. And I thought, well, now that's interesting, because isn't that the same thing? You know, again, I was just kind of cursory. But then I heard what they said, and they said, no, because it's slavery, it's calling someone a slave is giving them a title and a disposition and putting upon them a perspective or an identity. Enslaved people means that there was an action done unto someone which created an environment in which they had to operate. That was masterful. That's what I talk about when I say intellectual agility, not being intellectually lazy, getting a multitude of perspectives before you solidify and stand firm in your own, and owning when your perspective is different from the facts. We are all entitled to our own opinion. We are not entitled to our own facts. The facts are the facts. There's still such a thing as truth. The truth still exists. And as leaders, it is important for you to, one, get the facts, understand the facts, know the difference between completely opening the kimono and just being transparent, knowing that people are not only listening to you, but they are watching you. In this time, as we're still in COVID, we thought we were going to be getting out of COVID, but as we're still in COVID, and now we've got the Delta variant, we've got the Mu variant now, we're all going to be really well-versed in the Greek alphabet. I heard somebody say that the other day, by the time this is over. I can't imagine another time in history where it's been as important to get to experts, to be discerning, to not take everything you see on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all those other places as gospel. But what's good about those things is it can give you some perspectives. It can tell you what other people are thinking, maybe, because the algorithms just keep showing you the same stuff, right? It's giving you the same thing. It's like, let's say, professional services, breathing your own exhaust, right? If you're always looking at the same thing, it's only going to feed you that same opinion. But now we know that. We know that if you start seeing the same thing in Facebook, or if you're on Facebook all the time, or you're on Instagram all the time, or you're on whatever platform all the time, YouTube, whatever, the algorithm is going to keep showing you the stuff you've been looking at. Know that, and intentionally seek out different opinions. Intentionally seek out different perspectives. Intentionally look for things that challenge your position, because it will either make you stronger in your position or give you an opportunity to rethink and grow and learn, and maybe be even stronger going forward. But that's what real leaders do. Real leaders don't dig their heels in so far in their thing that they're unwilling to be moved. That's not what real leaders do. You know, we talked about very early on that this pandemic has created some really fantastic leaders, some people who come into leadership because it's about behavior, not position. Some leaders have arisen that came out of the blue that nobody would have expected. And those leaders who were poor leaders before have become even worse leaders during the pandemic, because this is an even bigger challenge to their ability to serve others, to be communicative, to be clear, to be compassionate, right? To connect dots, all of those kind of things, to be forward thinking, to be innovative. If you were bad at that before, it's even worse now, and it's exacerbated. So along those same lines of businesses trying to decide what they're going to do about compensation and how they're going to morph their culture or think about perks or how they're going to actually run their businesses, it's a great time for you to address those leadership challenges. In fact, there is no better time. There's been no better time for you to be able to do that, because the impact on your business now is even more exponentially negative than it was before. Just a thought. If you're going to go to work anyway, how about going to work to do the best work you can do? How about not just dialing it in? And when I say go to work, I mean whether that's going to work at home in your home office or going to an office. How about you just go to work? How about we all just get to work? How about we all just use our voices? How about we all go get the facts from reputable sources? How about we all rally and rail against hypocrisy? How about that? How about we call it out when we see it? And yes, there are things that are more important to each individual than other things. There are things that we will get all crazy about. Voting is one of those for me, right? That we'll get all crazy about, and other things we may let slide for whatever reason. But step back and take a look at those things that you're blowing off. Why? Is it because you're so far removed from that it doesn't matter? All of you guys who are really professing this greater good and this desire to be a better person, that includes taking care of those who are worse off than you. That includes creating opportunity. That includes being sponsors and mentors and supporters. That includes each one teach one. That includes lifting someone else up. That includes being humble enough to listen to someone else's story and not negate their experience because you don't understand it or you didn't experience it yourself. This is really big in the DE&I space. So anybody who listens to me, don't ever again listen to the story of a woman or a person of color who told you about a situation that impacted them negatively and say, oh, I'm sure that's not what they meant. You don't know. You weren't there. You don't know their history. And you're not being impacted by that same microaggression. Stop it. The disparity is systemic. Go look at the facts. Even if you don't ever want to read a book, go look at the statistics around housing. Go look at gentrification. Go look at gerrymandering. Go look at go look at the facts. Even for me, if you don't want to believe me, I'm cool with that because I go look at the facts too. Go look at the facts before you determine that someone else's story is the right thing, especially if you know they've already got an agenda. When you're following someone, go look at their bio. Go look at what else, whatever website it is. I saw something today that I was looking at because I was looking at many different opinions. And this one, I started reading the statistics. I'm like, so those statistics are contrary to the CDC. Let me go look at that again. Then I looked at the about. There's an agenda there. Because here's the thing about numbers. It's one of the reasons I'm not an accountant anymore and why I love operations and I love manufacturing. Here's the thing about numbers and even statistics. You have to have a very, 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 very high level of integrity and disassociation with the insight that the information is going to give you in order to use statistics effectively, to just tell what the statistics say. Because numbers are easily manipulated. Hello, Enron, right? Numbers are easily manipulated. Pardon me now. So even when you're going to look at data and look at numbers, see where you're getting it from. Read the fine print. I was reading something today and they were talking about statistics. Let me find this thing. They were talking about statistics. And I was like, wait, these numbers don't add up. But guess what? They have footnotes, y'all. They have footnotes. Read the footnotes. Because if you read the footnotes, it's like, that's why those numbers may not make as much sense as I thought they would be. That's why the math doesn't add up. Because real data and real data scientists and real experts are going to put their references. They're going to put the science behind it. They're going to put the math. That's what they're going to do. Because that's what they're called to do. So, if you are listening today to my show, one, thank you. And I'm going to scroll through these comments too. Thank you all for joining. I see Jan, I saw Leela, I saw Jenny, I saw Jackie. If you're listening today, don't believe the hype. Don't believe just what someone's telling you about why these things are happening. There's a reason. There's data behind why these things are happening. This is about an agenda. This is about a specific agenda. This is not about protecting elections, and this is not about protecting life. That's not what this is about. There is so much hypocrisy underlying all of the stuff that we're seeing right now. That's not what this is about. I ask that you do some research. I ask that you pause. I ask that you not be silent at this time. I ask that you go get registered to vote. I ask that you go find someone with a differing opinion and have a mature adult discussion about it. I ask that you be real with your people. I ask that you make decisions that understand that it's mission first, but people always. Mission first, but people always, because you can't achieve the mission without the people. I just ask that we get back to some level of moderation, that we get back to compassion and heart, and that we don't get so caught up in this craziness and madness of agendas that we lose our ability to think, that we get so tired, and I am tired, okay? But that we get so tired that we just leave the fight. That's why I got on my good trouble. See, got on my good trouble shirt today. We can't leave the fight. And everybody fights differently. I'm not a marcher, right? That's not going to happen to me. For me, that's not what I do. But I use my platform to educate. I use my platform to give facts and data, right? I call my senators. You got to call your senators. That's what we're getting this bill passed. You got to call your senators. I ask everyone to call somebody. Call somebody and say, I'm not okay with this. And even outside of Texas, call. Say, Texas, this is insane. And again, I love my state. I love my state. I wouldn't live anywhere else right now. Well, that may not be true. But I love my state. But we got some issues. And we need to address them because this is about an individual's choice with their body. Because what I do to my body, because everybody says, well, you know, about masks. No, but what I do to my body impacts me. Me. What I do about a mask impacts everybody else around me. Mm-hmm. But what I do to my body impacts me. We're not telling people you can't have a heart transplant. We're not telling people you can't have an amputation. Because you know what? God gave you 2 legs. You can't take that leg off. What's wrong with you? We don't say that. We don't tell people not to cut their hair. We don't. Come on. There is such a thing as agency, y'all. There is such a thing as agency. All right. I'll get off my soapbox today. Mm-hmm. I've been fired up. Thank you guys for listening. Please go out and get active about something that matters to you. Whatever that is. Please get active about something. I'm going to scroll through these too. Elections have consequences. Exactly. And yes. And we require training for manicurists, hairstylists, all this kind of stuff. But you don't have to be trained to be this new poll worker under Texas law. Come on now. Jackie said, what is wrong with showing your driver's license to give another form of ID at the voter registration? The social security number is a problem because we got identity theft. The driver's license in and of itself, you show your driver's license now to prove your identity. What they were talking about in this bill this morning was actually them documenting and taking down your driver's license number or the last 4 of your social security. We don't know what's going to happen with that and where that data is going to go. That's the challenge. Thank you for that question, Jackie. That was a really good question. Tisa, Jenny, thank you guys so much. Mama Young, Morris, thank you for watching. Yep, corporate socialism. Jan, thank y'all so much. What about on Facebook? Jerry's Facebook. Thank y'all for tuning in.
Ned is saying that she can't believe in this day and time we're still fighting for voters' rights.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Fight the fight.
Yes, ma'am. Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. Thank you guys for tuning in. This replay will be up too. I'll see you next week. Bye.